All right, since it's Robert Depper, I'm the chair of the Burlington Police Commission. I'm going to call us to order. It is 6:05. We're going to have a roll call and determination of forum. Please indicate if you are here. Commissioner Mary Cox.
Here.
Commissioner Tessa Fass.
Here.
Commissioner Julia Norio.
Here.
And Robert Depper, I'm here. We have a forum. I understand some of our members are on their way, so just go through some of these preliminary things. Additions or modifications to the agenda. I have one addition to the agenda. I wanted to move to vote on this being a special meeting. I think we didn't get out the we didn't get out the notice 24 hours prior. As everybody knows, we are not on our regular date tonight. Just based on when it was going to be held originally. I think that makes us technically a special meeting, and 24 hours more notice is okay. So I will just go ahead and move that this be considered a special meeting appropriate for 24-hour notice.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, carries. Great. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adopt the previous? Is there anybody else who wants to make an addition or modification to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we move on to the next business. Motion to adopt previous meetings minutes. So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt previous meetings minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, none opposed. Motion carries. Meeting minutes are adopted. Do we have anyone from the public who would like to address the commission? Okay, looks like nobody from the public wants to address the commission. I see that Commissioner Paul has joined us. Commissioner Paul, we're just moving through some of the preliminary matters. You came right at the nick of time. We have no one to talk to the commission, so I will turn it over to the chief for his report.
Excellent, thank you, Chair Depper. So this month's report a little different format. We'll talk about what we're going to present for data in early 2026 to recap 2025. From the personnel front, uniform services we're operating at a deficit, largely due to injuries. We've got a record number of uniform officers that are injured on long-term leave, which has made staffing in the patrol division rather challenging. But despite this, we've kept up with all the calls for service. Of course, we've been greatly assisted by the Vermont State Police in the downtown throughout the holiday season and the early winter weather really helps in terms of following any crime of the sort that's been occurring outdoors. Additionally, members of our drug unit have really stepped up, jumped out in the field during priority calls for service or filling overtime shifts, and their supervisor, Detective Sergeant Cliff Tremblay, took time to call that out. That notation was added to their file. Since our last meeting, we've also trained 2 of our new sergeants. I know that I introduced them at our last meeting. Eric Cravadell and Peter Chair were both successful in their field training course of training, and are now serving in capacity on the patrol teams, which is a fantastic advancement for the organization in terms of building out the patrol leadership team. Also in early December, Detective Lieutenant Mike Bellamo graduated from the DC Police Leadership Academy. So Washington DC Police hold this police academy. Is very similar to other experiences like the FBI National Academy or senior level executive development, where they bring in just world-class leaders in the profession, talk about trends, leadership, and what it takes to do these jobs. DC is interesting in the sense that they open it up to outside entities. It's free for attendees. You just have to pay travel and per diem. And Lieutenant Bellamo said it was a top-notch experience, and comparing it against other things that we've sent people to SMIP through Police Executive Research Forum on the National Academy, where I'm a graduate. See the keynote speakers that were available in this training course and very consistent with the other experiences that are available. So we're very proud of his accomplishments there. on the operational front, we're working close with our state partners as part of the 14-step plan that was developed. Again, state troopers on our place of that and welcome addition. Also, an interesting enforcement addition was the Department of Motor Vehicles work on 27 Beltline. They've been out there associating commuter hours Monday through Friday. We don't have their data yet, but I understand that they've taken a lot of enforcement activity, and they've heard from the motors themselves. Wow, we've never seen the police out here before. We know that that's a very dangerous highway in terms of serious injury crash or serious property damage crashes. So it'll be good to kind of distill that, see what the typical infractions were, be it speeding, distracted driving, and they had a couple of impaired operators. And to really reflect on that and think about ways that we can be able to address this fatality work. As I earlier mentioned, the early onset of winter really curbed the behavior that the Safe and Accessible City Hall Park resolution was aimed at. We know that this is a typical seasonal cause and effect, and we're going to need to be prepared when it turns either warm in winter or in the early spring. See a lot of the behavior back out there because the number of unhoused individuals that we know are in our data sets there. We've also been working closely with the special prosecutor on the accountability docket, and it appears that his work has certainly been effective in not only holding people that need to be held pre-trial, but also clearing out the docket, which we're optimistic and it'll be good to see what his final data metrics look. We also had Sergeant Warren Byrne lead the safety and security operation for the tree lighting event, which was very well attended by all accounts. It's great to be out there on the street, see that kind of energy, and also see fidelity to the city response to creating a safe space there with blocker trucks from the Department of Public Works. Of course, SD Ireland is kind enough to lend their snow mixers that are decorated for the season, but we also use those in ways to mitigate any vehicle borne attacks and great event overall. As part of our work with the Department of Public Safety, they asked for some real specific data that we had our analysts drill down on in terms of what was going on in downtown core. So the charts here in this month's report are rolling incidents downtown. I can follow up with the actual slides. They don't run PDF super well unless you expand them. But what this activity shows, what the levels actually show, are calls for service from the public. So officer initiated activity has been removed from all the graphs this month, so they're consistent. But you'll see the first one is related to PPD incidents downtown, rolling 7-day average in terms of disorder, and we obviously had some high moments in the summer and then tapered off in early winter here. The dotted line just represents when the state police started their patrol. If I were the state police, I would seize that as victory. What we know is not only the state police present, but the weather turned extremely cold. The second chart is illustrative of the behavioral health incidents that we respond to. That's the blue line. So think about things like mental health, intoxication, overdose rates, welfare checks. You'll see the typical seasonal trends, but then a bit of an uptick here in December as well. And then the gold line is representative of drug activity in downtown district, and that behaves very similar to the disorder graph, in which is the green line at the top of the page. So again, nothing really significant here, other than a downward trend. But we know not only does presence of the state police, Burlington police, or community service officers, then the wraparound work that our street outreach team, sport liaisons, that's all in play here, but there is a serious weather difference.
I have a quick question about that. I'm curious
Yes.
to differentiate drugs and behavioral health, and like if there's overlapping numbers or there.
So I would say to your question that overdose rate is not in drug compliance. So when we graph drug-related incidents, it's really things that are criminal in nature or suspected to be criminal in nature, and because how overdose is approached as an area for harm reduction, there's actually state statute around immunity from liability, where criminal charges generally cannot be filed in those cases. Overdose is counted behavioral health. Well, where the overlap actually is with the population. So one day we may go to an overdose with someone, the next day we may be addressing an incident of public drug consumption. But in the data that we will present to kind of capture or recap 2025, we can break that out much more in a much more granular way to better inform, better answer questions, and to really kind of drill down on what isn't going on in the downtown.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. The next graph is similar, although in Battery Park. So again, officer initiated activity is removed from this. And you'll see that we had some outlying behavior in warmer months, and that has substantially trickled off here in December. The bar chart here at the bottom is the top 20 people associated with our most frequent flyers in the downtown district. And this month, what we wanted to illustrate is not only their existence still in our data set, but how we actually referred out some of these folks to the situation table or the accountability board or both. So we'll start with both. So that's the purple bar. That person has been referred to both the accountability docket as well as the situation table. Anyone that's kind of that maroon color is being addressed by the accountability docket. Blue is situation table, and then the gray is neither. But what I will say is a lot of the folks that are depicted here in gray are Howard Services clients, and they're already engaged in services. And Howard is stepping up kind of as a one-off to the situation table to say, like, we don't need to expend the resources here. They're in the ecosystem. Let's try to scoop them back up. But if some of these outliers, like our top consumer here on the left side of the graph, still persist, we're going to have a conversation with Howard about why it's not effective. So, how we can help this person create less harm in the community and certainly create a less harmful experience for themselves as individuals. Any questions on that one? Along. This is a follow-up to a question that Commissioner Paul posed during our last meeting about gun violence trends before, so pre-2020. So we did have data going back to 2012. You'll see that the numbers were either non-existent or very, very low. And then in the pandemic and out through 2022, had a very sharp increase. And now we're on a decline. 2025, got a few days left. So I'm not ready to do the victory lap just quite yet. Certainly seen a drastic reduction when you look back across 22 through 24. The bottom is not a heat map, but an incident count map of where these incidents have occurred. And the real takeaway here is a lot of this gun violence that was going on between 2020 and 2024 was actually occurring in the downtown district or in the event. And these were the incidents that were lethal at times, very unsettling for the community, and really focused on by the media. Really gave Burlington this reputation as being extraordinarily unsafe. I feel as though that was the case then. There was a lot of things to be concerned about, a lot of key partners that worked on that, to include the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, a lot of key prosecutions by the United States Attorney's Office, and then just better really awareness of this trend and strategies in which to investigate and deter some of this. I will say that the success that we've seen in 2025, I believe, can be firmly attributed to our presence in the community. We know that basic crime suppression effective technique is having officers in spaces where we know that we're experiencing crime and disorder, and I'm proud of the work that our team has done in that regard. So again, I've already teed up this conversation with our data analyst, Jeff Nicholson, for a 2025 year in review data set presentation in 26, and hope to really drill down on what went on in the city and how it looks against 5-year trends. Any questions on the data portion of the report?
One question,
Sure.
because it's never occurred to me, can you tell me what gunfire incidents, what entails that?
So
What's included in it?
yeah, so any time that a gun is essentially used in an act of violence.
And does that not include when a police officer discharges their?
That's
fire?
correct.
Okay, so if they show up to a scene because somebody's fired a gun and they have to fire their gun, that's one incident, but if they show up, nobody has fired a gun and they fire their gun, that's not an incident.
So it's investigated as a criminal investigation, and it's a criminal incident by the Vermont State Police. So how the Vermont State Police account for that, I don't know. We would not count that.
Okay. Is there a reason why it's not?
So we're not investigating it, and the cases that I'm aware of, it's been justified, so I don't know why.
That it's presumed that either like some violence perpetrated by an officer on a presumed criminal, or just, I don't know, for whatever reason is like safer or less of a something that the public should be concerned with.
So I think it shows up.
I'm just thinking because I feel like people do hear gunshots and it could be police initiated. And would call and say like, hey, I think I heard gunshots in my neighborhood. And I'm wondering like if that gets tallied anywhere.
Right,
It just gets removed because you've accounted for it, there's no investigation. And
no, that's not the case at all. So we have very strict reportings about use of force, and a firearm discharge is a use of force, so it's captured in our use of force data. But those incidents are also investigated as potential crimes by the Vermont State Police. So I think that's the difference, where when an officer discharges their firearm in line of duty, we account for that in a use of force application. And then the Vermont State Police would account for the criminal investigation of that force application.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Move on to recruitment. So we took a little bit of time last week to review and reflect upon the recruitment strategy that was published late May of this year, and looked at some social media metrics, which are promising. Not only is our presence on social media important in terms of recruitment, but it's also a way in which police departments in a meaningful way communicate and build relationships with their residents themselves. We all know how pervasive these platforms are, how well used they are. So we've seen great engagement on both platforms. We've also used some targeted marketing to try to advance career opportunities with Burlington Police. We've got a lot of different metrics that come back from our vendor that we're trying to distill and understand. But essentially, when we use targeted marketing campaigns, it's generally an area where we're going to be either at an active recruitment tabling event or career fair, like when we did our event at the Champlain Valley Fair, to then see how many people are not only visiting us in person, but then clicking through to our career site. And then we also were able to take some of the data that we have in terms of the money that we use and distill that down to cost for police application. So we did run, right before I started the police department, we did run a little bit of an expensive ad on television during March Madness. So factoring that expense in with some nominal costs to our social media work, and then a little bit more money spent on the targeted digital marketing. We had about 78 applications, and that distills down to about $100 per application received this year. So moving forward, we want to kind of become much more efficient with the money that we're using while increasing the number of applications that we're receiving. We know that we need to really boost that number. So we're working on kind of a recruitment strategy 2.0 to not only bring efficiency, but more effectiveness to our. And then last day I have here is just a reflection on the year itself, and despite the challenges of being short-staffed and navigating increasingly complex public safety needs here in the city of Burlington, many rooted in things that police aren't the experts on. Our team has really stepped up, and I feel as though met the community's expectations as we're rebuilding the police force, integrating the other social service elements that have been brought online. And I think that's just a testament to our people. And remember that, especially during the holiday season, during these cold nights, every single day and night, police officers, community support liaisons, community service officers, and our partners with our street outreach show up, meet people where they're at, and try to get the right person on the right problems, do our best to keep them safe and vibrant. With that, short report this month, but we didn't have a lot of time between meetings. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Mayor Cox. Mr. Cox, did you have a question?
Yes, I just had a couple quick questions. First of all, I wanted to say that I noticed the street outreach had longer hours now than they used to. They used to only work through, I think, 4 p.m. and now they work through 8 p.m. And I just wanted to say that I think that's making a positive difference. And so if you can pass that to whoever's coordinating that, that would be great. My second question was on your officers. Is there anybody that are in that deployment of the Vermont National Air Guard?
No.
Okay, good. That would be a hit. My last question is on your heat maps. I was just interested in the technology that you're using to produce those. So is that something that is collected off of the body cams, or is it something that's, how's that? I was just interested in how you guys collect that. It's just a technology question.
Sure, so that's work that our data analyst does, but as I understand it, that is from like an ArcGIS map from incident location. He just renders it with those little octagons. But Jeff is also actively developing a very similar product that folks will be able to access via the city website and really drill down on incident types, incident locations. Of course, we have to check the addresses a little bit in order to preserve the privacy of crime victims, and we certainly have to exclude some crime categories to include acts of sexual violence and domestic violence under federal law. But more to come on that data illustration soon, and I will invite Jeff to be here with us in January when we have a full data presentation on the 2025 year. And
Perfect. Thank you so much.
of course.
Anything else? Hearing none, I will close out that part of the business. Does anyone need the chief's presence for the rest of it? No, thank you very much, Chief, Deputy Chief. I appreciate it. I guess I won't have to log on all the time. You can plug in. How do you have that thing plugged in? Is that an SD?
Yeah, you're gonna have a struggle. You know what?
Yeah.
We'll hang out.
Okay.
It's gonna be too much for a project.
Is it something I have?
Don't worry about it. We're here.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it. So, all right, so we'll move on to section 5, commission business. First part of that is committee reports from all committees. The only standing committee I think we have right now is the complaints committee. I'll be honest, I haven't really done much on putting those complaints together for this round. We have talked a little bit about scheduling.
I took the PDF file that you had compiled and broke it down into individual incidents. Mary, I'm not sure if you made folders for those or if I did, I can't remember. And I did do some proposed changes to our tracker. I kept the original one from last year there, and I made a copy of it, condensed a lot of things, so it wasn't like the title was on your screen. And so it would be great if We had a time to review that before we next week, 2 weeks.
Close to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think we've got a tentative schedule for 12/29. We were trying to decide if we could do the animal control committee concurrent with that. And I don't have an answer on that.
Well, I don't think we have enough people on the animal control committee.
Yeah,
We need the 2 other parties. I did speak to some of the staff at the Chittenden County Humane Society, who I could reach out to. Most of the people there are volunteering already their time and don't have a lot of extra time to be volunteering on a committee. They did refer me to the Vermont Veterinary Medical Association. So they kindly posted a request for anybody to reach out if they wanted to volunteer their time as either a licensed veterinarian or certified animal behaviorist or whatever said the word is. I reached out to 4 people that I personally know and have not gotten any responses that anybody has available to that. So if anybody has a friend that's a veterinarian or anybody they could reach out to, that would, I'm sure, be very helpful, so we don't have to have these parties wait many months for some kind of resolution.
Sure, and I've been working with the police department to get that insert report contact information for both of the parties that so once we have that, I think then it's kind of a clock's ticking.
Yeah.
Sort of issue. I think certainly by the next meeting date on 1/27, if we don't have somebody lined up, and we'll have to talk about how to meet that standard, even if it's asking council to do something different, give us a waiver or something, because I don't want this to just, I don't think any of us wanted to just float around. You can't be hung up completely because we can't find someone.
Maybe we can reach out, as soon as possible. Maybe they can signal boost that. I'm sure there's a way that they can reach out to maybe more people. I know that it's a busy time for everybody, so.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I can reach out to.
I was wondering if you could give a little bit of background. Was that something that was discussed last meeting more in depth? The Animal Control Committee and how it came to be?
Well, the Animal Control Committee, so broadly, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, because I understand the Animal Control Committee is the core competency of the police commission. That is something that we got some time ago by ordinance. That was the makeup of the committee was changed by ordinance last year.
Or for this year, maybe get for this year.
Okay, approved this year, and includes a veterinarian and a quote unquote certified animal behavioral specialist. Certification of which is not defined. And so push comes to shove on that, I may just ask for a vote on the brand new Burlington Police Commission Animal Behavioral Certification Program. But we've got to have those 2 individuals on the committee in order to hear issues of animal control. And we have a emergent situation that we're trying to coordinate on, and that is proving to be a barrier to constituting.
And perhaps is the first time that this committee has now needed to comply with this.
Yeah.
Perhaps the council or the people should reach out to ask who was involved with those changes on the ordinance committee, and maybe they have some contacts.
Yeah.
To reach out to.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Fast?
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Yeah, I saw it under our committees in terms of responsibility, but I wasn't sure if something sparked it. So I think that answered my questions as well.
For sure. Did you get a copy of the initial letter that came through?
Yeah.
So that is where we are, both on the Plains Committee and the Animal Control Committee. Does anybody have any questions? No. Hearing none, Move on to introduction to bylaws discussion. Let's see, what time is it? It is 6:35. And I forgot my phone at home, so I cannot text Anthony. Does anybody have Anthony's phone? All right. I can email.
It's not. Seems very weird, signature kind of just his name.
My signature is always quite robust.
Yeah. I could reply to the email.
He's here, Robert.
Oh, you're there? Great.
Thank you. Somebody promoted me just in time. Oh, let me get my camera on. Sorry. Not quite. Hi, everyone. Can you see me? Great.
Yes.
Thanks. For commissioners who haven't seen my face before, because there's a lot of new faces. And for those tuning in at home, my name is Anthony Irapino. I am retained by the city attorney's office to play the role of independent counsel and conflict counsel for the Burlington Police Commission. So I'm a resource for the commission in the conduct of certain aspects of its business. And I understand that I have now been working, I think, 4 years with the commission, it might be at this time, and maybe it's 3. Time flies when you're having fun. But one of the things that has been suggested, and I think is really a valuable suggestion, and I know that work was started under co-chairs Rao and Cox, was that the commission develop a set of bylaws, because when we have turnover among the commissioners, there's a lot of learning about what exactly is the scope of authority that the commission has. What are your responsibilities? How do you divide up your work internally? And so your current chair asked me to look at what material is out there and available for the public to help the public understand your role, as well as what's available internally. And I've done that. So I'm going to give a short presentation on that tonight, and look for the commission to give me some direction about how I can be helpful in next steps. Is that about right, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Great. So the commission has 4 sources of authority. One is the charter, the city charter. There are a number of provisions where the commission is mentioned in the city charter, both in terms of its qualifications and how it's appointed and how many members there are, but also in certain of its specific duties. The commission also then, based on language that is in the charter, can receive other responsibilities when it comes to both overseeing and assisting the department in the conduct of its business. And those are city council ordinances. So to the extent that the city council has authority over the police department, they can delegate some of that authority to the commission. And in fact, in several ordinances, they have done that. And then another source of the commission's authority is department directives. And there are a number of different department directives that the commission participates in shaping and reviewing and approving in conjunction with the chief. The most important department directive is Department Directive number 1. And that really lays out where the commission is involved in terms of helping to set policy for the department. I'll step through all these in a little bit more detail, but I'm trying right now for the overview. And then the last source of authority that the commission has is as a result of collective bargaining agreements with the BPOA, where the commission's role in the grievance process is particularly called out, and as well the city's comprehensive personnel manual, where the commission is positioned as a step in the grievance process to hear grievances from non-sworn officers who are disciplined in the course of their business. So that's the general overview. And of course, almost all of this authority starts in the charter because of the way Vermont municipal government is set up. You know, the powers of our municipality are derived from what the state says a different community can or cannot do. And the voters of Burlington, with approval from the state, have created the commission and given it specific authorities. Within the charter, the big authorities have to do with essentially the commission's role as hearing appeals from very serious discipline that the chief meets out, which would mean sworn officers who are suspended for a certain length of time or dismissed or demoted from their position. So that is a big source of authority. And in my time assisting the commission in the conduct of its business, that has come up. In addition, as I mentioned before, the charter does give the city council the authority to delegate some responsibilities to the commission. And there are a number of resolutions that were passed by the city council and signed by the mayor. And these include a resolution from 2020, Resolution 512, and that is delegating the commission the authority to review complaints. And when we say complaints, we're talking both about complaints that are filed by members of the public who've had an interaction with members of the force or the department that they feel is in some way improper or incorrect or needing correction by discipline. But it also can involve complaints that are generated internally through investigations that are done by the department or as a result of complaints from inside the department. There's also City Council Resolution 7.09 from 2021, which delegates to the council the authority to initiate audits, reviews, and evaluations of different department policies, including specifically about racial disparities and data of that nature, but also about quote unquote other commission priorities. And then those are the big ones in terms of delegations by resolution. Department Directive number 1, which again is adopted jointly, the department and the chief, the leadership of the department drives the original perspective on department directives and the original shape of them, the draft, what they cover, how they cover the different topics, and these govern. I think, and the chief can correct me, but I believe there's upwards of 40 department directives. They run across everything from, the ethical standards of officers to the use of body-worn cameras to fair and impartial policing, dealing with people with diminished capacity, dealing with department resources and assets. So department directives are sort of the internal rules of the police department. And in Department Directive number 1, the commission is identified as, quote, the sole and final authority relating to the approval, revision, issuance, or purging of any departmental rule, regulation, or directive governing employees of the police department. In my time advising the commission, that has been a very collaborative process, again, driven primarily by the chief, with the commission sort of acting as a sounding board and in an advisory role. But as you can tell from the language I just quoted, there is substantial authority vested in the commission with regard to setting the internal policies of the department. And then the other big category, which was mentioned both in the charter as well as in the collective bargaining agreement and the personnel policy at the city level, is hearing grievances. So when the chief believes that a member of the force needs to be disciplined, whether it's a sworn officer or somebody, an ununiformed staff member in the department. That is handled at the chief level, as I alluded to before. The chief consults with the Burlington Police Commission before handing out discipline, and it's ultimately the chief's decision, but it's sort of an advisory role that the commission plays early on in the discipline process. But then once discipline is crystallized, once a final decision has been made at the chief's level, either because of the charter, if it's really serious discipline, or the collective bargaining agreement for lesser forms of discipline, or the municipal personnel policy, the commission will hear an appeal or a step 2 or 3 grievance from the employee of the department who is being disciplined. And sometimes that means that there's a full-blown hearing where we have witnesses who present evidence. And sometimes that's just 2 lawyers making an argument about whether the rules were violated or they weren't, because everyone kind of agrees what the facts are. And sometimes there's no hearing at all. Sometimes the commission has the authority to simply review the decisions that were made and say, yep, this seems right, or we'd like to course correct on this. So as you can tell from that overview, and it's a very rough overview, but I do want to call commissioners' attention to a document that I shared today, which is a markup of the public-facing website for the commission, because I've collected all of these authorities in one place and sort of quoted from them as a means to both, again, help the public understand what your role is, but also it's a resource for new commissioners when they're appointed, or existing commissioners to like, hey, let's check the website. Is that something that falls under our responsibility? But it's very broad. And the part I don't help with that Commissioner Fast was just talking about is the animal control. I'm very happy to not be retained to help with that, although maybe the city attorney's office will ask me to help with that. But so I don't know much about that, and I don't staff the commission for that. But for all the other things I staff the commission, there's a lot of work on your plate, and I hope your neighbors appreciate what a tremendous public service it is that you play. But as there has been turnover, it does make sense to gather in one place all the things that you're responsible for, and then use that as a kickoff conversation with this new group. I know there was some work done on bylaws under the prior chairs, but there are some new faces. And so it's up to this group to really figure out, with all these authorities, how do we want to assign roles and responsibilities? What things do we want to delegate just to the chair to be able to do for a matter of efficiency? What things does the whole commission need to weigh in on? How do we, get to the place where many hands make light work when that's appropriate? And how do we get to the place where, somebody can make an executive decision when that best serves the efficient business of the commission? So I hope that is a good introduction. There's a lot more I could say about each of these authorities and how they've come up in the time that I've had the privilege to serve as your independent counsel. But I'm going to stop there and see if there's any question or commissioner discussion.
Anybody have any comments or questions for Anthony? I really appreciate all your work on this, Anthony. Particularly the information you put together and the website markup, very, very helpful. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. That reminds me, and it would be excellent if the commission would, come to some, perhaps not at this meeting, but, the city attorney's office is also going to be reviewing this content for accuracy and consistency with what they like to put out on the web. But it would be great. I know commissioners probably just got it. I can't remember if it was ever circulated to the whole group. So I think it may be that the whole group is just now seeing it. If you could, give me feedback so we can get this work product being put to work for the benefit of the public and the commission. I will also say, when we talk about the grievance procedures, I I am recommending that you adopt bylaws for your normal, policy oversight, complaint review, helping with the department directives, things of that nature, and that the procedures that are adopted for when a grievance comes to you, what do you expect of the attorneys and the union representatives and the parties? That we have working in draft separately, and I hope that will be ready to be shared out with the commissioners and the city attorney's office relatively soon, because in my time, we've never had a consistent set of procedures. We've sort of always, uh, each time a grievance comes to us, we sort of pull together from things we've done in the past. And it is not always efficient for the commission, and it's definitely not always efficient for the parties. And so I think it would be really great if the commission could move toward also getting once you see the draft I have working, really spend some time giving me feedback on that so that we can never predict when these grievances are coming at us, and we hope that there are few for the sake of the department, and the commissioners, because they do take a lot of time to resolve. But it's one of the most important duties you have, and it's a lot of work for the lawyers and the union representatives that participate in the process. And I think this group of commissioners would be doing the city of Burlington a huge service if you standardize how those procedures are handled and give advance notice to the parties that come before you on those procedures. So if you could get standard bylaws adopted and then specific grievance procedures adopted, like this group would go down in the pantheon of highly successful, highly contributing commissioners.
Attorney Arpino, what do you see as a benefit to having grievance procedures separate out from the bylaws? Like, I do see some value certainly in having like a separate document that we can just hand parties and say these are grievance procedures. But do you see any pro or con to just making them part of the bylaws as a separate section?
So the way I think about it, in my legal practice, I advise a lot of boards and commissions. Some of them are municipal boards and commissions. Some of them are corporate boards. Some of them are nonprofit boards. And when I hear the term bylaws, I think these are our rules for how we operate internally. This is what we do. This is how we divide our labor. This is how we run our inward focus process, board member to board member. When I think about the grievance procedures for how you handle grievances, those are really for the benefit of the parties coming before you, so they understand what they need to bring, to the table for you to hear the cases. Like they deal with things like, how much detail do you need to file in your grievance when you bring it to the commission, so everybody knows what the real issue is? What are you complaining about that the chief did that you think the chief shouldn't have done? How much time are you going to have to present your witnesses? How far in advance do you need to tell the commission how many witnesses you plan to call? What exhibits you want them to review? What videos you want them to watch? So that's why I recommend they be separate. They could be very easily integrated. They could live in one document, but as a draft person, I haven't actually drafted your bylaws. I know you have a legacy version circulating, and I leave it to the commission's discretion whether they want to work with that earlier draft that had been done or have me start from a blank page. But I did from a blank page drafting of the procedures, and I really did think of them as informed by the role that I have to play. Because when a grievance comes, the parties really shouldn't be talking to the commissioners. The commissioners are the decision makers. And usually, and they're quasi judicial, to use some legalese, meaning they're court-like. Okay. And normally the parties don't speak directly to the judge. They filter what they need to speak through a staff attorney or a clerk. And then the clerk and the purpose is to minimize the risk that in the interchange between the parties and the decision makers outside of the hearing process, that some bit of information or argument that shouldn't really prematurely be put before the commissioners gets put before them, or one side is talking to a decision maker and the other side doesn't know what's being said, and that alters and affects the perception of fairness. So oftentimes when there's a grievance, it falls to me as the commission's attorney to wrangle out with the parties, like, how is this hearing going to be structured? What is the order of presentation? How much time are we going to have, et cetera, et cetera. And, I am paid hourly on a contract by the city. And so every time I have to redo that process and renegotiate that process with the parties coming to the commission, the city is losing money. So the best case scenario for me, like, I drafted those procedures thinking, all right, every time there's been a grievance, what do I have to do? What are the decision points that I work with the commissioners on and the parties on? And I'm not saying they would be like one size fits all. They would always be subject to the commission's discretion to make some changes. But I think standardizing them as an externally facing document will make it more efficient for the commission and more cost effective for the city, and a more predictable process for the parties that come before you.
Thank you very much. I see Commissioner Cox has her hand raised. Commissioner Cox.
Yes, thank you. I just had a couple questions. One is that we do have a commission policy regarding viewing body cam footage. And one case of viewing the body cam footage is in connection with complaints and that sort of thing. And the other one is just if we're interested in examining what the police officers are doing, and how that's consistent or inconsistent with overall directives, but not for the purpose of discipline. It's for the purpose of just trying to figure out, like, does this directive even make sense?
Mhm.
Or is there some consistent not following of a
Yep.
directive? So it might need more training or whatever the situation is. And we had come, and I know you were involved with the negotiations and sort of working out the language, that we negotiated this with the BPOA.
Yep.
And so that's something that was through that collaboration with the BPOA that we devised that. And it wasn't a power given to us by statute or by the city council. It was something that just commission wanted to see this video, and the BPOA had filed an initial grievance about it, like a step one grievance. And then in order to avoid that, then we negotiated and collaborated with them to come up with a formula that made sense. And so is that something that could also be included in the webpage and the bylaws?
Yeah, it can certainly cite to it. I would, so my recollection of the genesis of this, I would differ on your statement that it wasn't authority that was given to the commission, because the reason the commission was looking at those was, again, as you aptly put it, Commissioner Cox, to try to understand how the policies and department directives are working, and the body worn camera footage can be a really clear way of helping commissioners who are not out in the field and who do not have the ground level experience get a look at what the officer's actual experiences are. But where that authority comes from is basically the resolution 7.09, where in 2021, the city council said the commission has the authority to initiate audits, reviews, and evaluations for the purposes of informing department policy. And so to review and evaluate footage and look at policies compared to that, it very much is grounded in authority that starts at the charter that says the city council can delegate authority to the commission. And then they in fact did do that through a resolution. So putting that aside, I just don't want there to be any clarity that the commission sort of just was off operating without authority and then the union made a concession. No, the commission had the authority and the commission took the very strong position they had the authority. What was negotiated was to make sure that the review of the body worn camera footage was stayed within that authority and we were not reviewing that footage to go play gotcha and say, oh, let's just randomly watch all the footage and see if we can find any officers acting in a way that requires discipline. So putting that aside, I agree that a lot of work went into that policy. And so part of the work of consolidating bylaws could be figuring out how to integrate that into your bylaws so that we don't lose, so that the goal, I think, is to create some institutional memory and some one-stop shopping for, new commissioners and members of the public who are curious, like, what is this commission authorized to do and how do they go about doing their work? So it's an excellent point, Commissioner Cox, that the commission and I ought to keep in mind when we move toward advancing a draft of bylaws is how do we make sure that they're comprehensive, whether that's an appendix to the bylaws or you write it into the bylaws itself, as long as we don't disturb the carefully negotiated balance of how you do that. I would hope the BPOA would not really care whether it's in bylaws or a freestanding policy.
So, in connection with that, one of the points that they were very clear on is that they did not want commissioners to be running out and talking to the press or to the public about what we've seen, so that there was a trust that they placed in us to watch it and then give feedback really just to the department. So that we could say to the department, well, this is what we saw. What do you guys think about that? And then work a way of collaborating with the department without making it public. And so I was just wondering if that was a point that was deeply made during the discussions and the negotiations. And so I just wanted you to also maybe keep that in mind, of maybe like a way of putting that in the bylaws to where it's clear that we would be violating that trust if we ran out to the newspapers or to NPAs or public sessions and gave them information from what we saw in these evaluations.
Yeah, it's an important point to keep in mind. It's really a policy decision for the commission, but I would say that subject to appropriate redactions as required by statute, body worn camera footage is a public record. Now, that doesn't mean the commission, with its privileged facilitated access, should be making decisions for the city about what to release and what not to release. That's the department and the city attorney's business. But I think the important balance to strike is to recognize that these videos are public records, and unless there is something on them that can be covered by an exemption, there's not like a special duty of confidentiality that the commission owes. So within that legal framework, it is a policy decision for the commission to make. And I agree with you, Commissioner Cox, that there is a sensitivity there with the officers. And like I said, each commission gets to decide how to weigh that sensitivity with other duties that commissioners feel they owe to the community. And I will faithfully memorialize whatever policy decision that you write up, and I'm sure the city attorney's office will let you know if they are concerned about whatever policy decision you land on vis-a-vis whether it's a fair labor practice or not.
Thank you. I just had one other quick thing. So our responsibility for reviewing like directives or changes to directives or taking away directives, is given in a directive itself. So this isn't something that was a law or a statute or a ordinance or a city council resolution. This is something that the police department in its directive number 1 actually gave us some authority to review directives and to give input. Is my understanding correct on that?
Yeah, I was surprised because it's a fairly broad grant of authority, and I looked for another place where that authority derived from, and I didn't find it. The city attorney, as I said, this document where I quote from the department directive, but essentially conclude that that's the only place where that I can see that authority coming from. The city attorney's office, will be reviewing this as well, so they may know something that I wasn't able to find or to see. But yeah, I think that's right. And oddly, although I don't believe it's ever been used in my tenure advising the commission, Department Directive number 1 also says that the mayor will select the chief, quote, in conjunction with the police commission. In my experience, the police commission has not been consulted in terms of the hiring decision for a chief. But it is in there in the department directive. And so I don't know what to do with that. But I say that because I don't know if you want to like come up with what would you do if the mayor ever asked you to consult on hiring the chief as it says in the department directive. But I haven't seen it happen, and I don't know how you would go about, working, quote, in conjunction with the mayor to choose a chief if that were if that ever came up. But that's another thing that's in department directive number 1 that I haven't seen a freestanding source of charter or resolution authority for.
I would say things were often irregular during that period of time, she said politely. I'm sorry, I was on the wrong screen, wrong video. I guess I was not in the YouTube version, but I'm here now. So I would like to say, that not only I think it's important to have bylaws and also have a separate document that, talks about basically when we have grievances and those kinds of things. We have a variety of people in and out over time who are commissioners, and it's really good for them to have something to look at to understand how the process works, because it's not a steady group of people all the way along. So I think that's a big benefit for that. Thank you, Anthony.
I'm glad to work with you on it, Commissioner Comerford. I hope we can get it done and like finalize maybe in the January timeframe. If February, I know you have a lot on your plate, but I think it'd be a real service if we could get it done before the end of the first quarter of 2026.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about that? Okay. Hearing none, I'll put this on the agenda. I intend to put this on the agenda again on the 27th, just to continue the conversation. We've all got the original documents, and then if anybody has any thoughts, like I'm going through just kind of a draft edit, just the original document that I'll share when I'm done. I'll share it with Anthony as well, just comments and thoughts on that formatting and stuff. And yeah, and then I'll be talking to Anthony some more about his thoughts on that, kind of thoughts on structuring it. And anybody that has any ideas, please just send them through the email to me and or Anthony, so that ideally I'd like to get to some sort of draft that we can all kind of look at and edit kind of together around the January 27th to get like an initial draft. So that's what I'll be working on probably mostly between now and the 27th with Anthony.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we kind of have to work hub and spoke because of open meeting. Like we can't all reply all. So if just send to me and I'll make sure that I'm communicating what I'm getting to your chair, and you know what I'm getting from him. We'll work it so that, you know, when you come to a next public meeting, you can really hash it out and have something that you all can work from together, but also that members of the public can comment on as well.
Thank you, Anthony. All right, if there's nothing on that, unless anybody has any final things for Anthony, I'd like to let him go and enjoy the rest of his evening.
Could I ask something just real quick? So we're talking about January for the main bylaws, but then the grievance related bylaws will come after that.
I mean, I would like to see them all kind of together. I mean, we'll just kind of have to do it as we can. From my perspective, I hate to commit to say, yeah, both full documents will be ready for be drafted in full by the 27th. But the way I think of them is, I think of them in integration in my head. I've done a lot more, Anthony's done a lot more municipal stuff. I've done a lot more like corporate articles and incorporation and things like that. So in my mind, they're all kind of integrated together, either as a separate section or as an appendix with reference that can be its own document. But I'm just saying, let's kind of keep communicating about that with Anthony and just kind of see how that develops. There's nothing else. Thank you very much, Anthony. I appreciate your time and your hard work.
I appreciate the opportunity to be of service to you all and to the Burlington community. Have a happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Anthony.
All right, we will move on to retreat goals discussion with the spreadsheets, and I will turn it over to Commissioner Paul. I know this was something she has to have put on the agenda.
Well, I did have asked to have it put on the agenda, and I'm glad to see that the first thing that we're working on is item number 4, which was the bylaws. That was a priority that was mentioned by, I think, just about everybody, and the timeline that I had proposed on the timeline was the February meeting. So it's actually possible maybe that would be hopefully a time where a vote might actually happen. So I think it's great if that's gonna hopefully come to us in January. The other items I tried to sort of put on the spreadsheet, and literally these are copies from the notes that Cassie gave us. There's nothing new on here. The first was to have some sort of a shared goal statement about how we're going to approach our meetings. I don't think that's going to take a whole lot of time. The 11 items that we talked about on shared goals at the retreat are all sitting here right in front in terms of the statement. So, ideally, I personally would love to see that get done and maybe even be able to vote on that in January. And then the others are all, just different goals that we had. And it's more a question of everyone's input as to what is most important, what is less important. Obviously, I remember when we were working on the CNA report and we had to struggle with the fact that everything was important. But if everything is important, then it's very hard to get anything done. So it's important to, I think, prioritize. And, as I say, I sort of tried to do that in this proposed timeline, just to be able to give people something to look at. I think, like, for example, the information about clarity and charge over charter, legal requirements and constraints, that actually is something that to some degree we've actually done this evening. So not really sure how much we want to revisit that because it may actually roll into what we discuss in January. And then the other was whether or not we wanted to try to work on a strategic plan. And then, as I say, the bylaws and the other items that, there's no order of importance here. It was just me literally numbering them. And, I'm just hoping that we can move forward on some of these and, take advantage of the work that we've already done collectively together to work on what our goals will be for the coming year. I mean, other than us all getting to spend some time together, I think we did make I think we did some meaningful work, and now it's up to us to get it done. So and then I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Paul. I appreciate you putting this together. I tend to agree with you that, I think some of it we're kind of already pushing on. I'm curious too, and I think it'd be interesting to see. I wonder if a lot of, as we talk about the bylaws and grievance procedures and all that kind of stuff, if that will kind of shake out some of these types of things, as I was looking through even the draft bylaws and making some notes, there's no reason why we can't have, those 11, I'm trying to pull it up here. There's no reason why we can't have those, 11 goals or values or whatever at the top of the bylaws document, just articulating the values and goals of the commission, right? So I'm wondering actually how much we can wrap into that. So I appreciate your work on that, for sure. Is there any other questions or comments from anyone?
Yeah, so I don't really want to leave the meeting without knowing exactly what it is that is going to happen. We only meet once a month, and before we know it, it'll be the 27th of January. So is that a motion that you are going to be taking the shared goal statement, all of the 11 items, and integrating those into a draft of the bylaws?
Well, it's certainly a possibility. I think it's a good thought. I'm hesitant to just announce that I am definitely going to add those, but I will certainly put together, a possibility, a section that if people want that to be included is a possibility.
Okay, well, so I would make a motion that we put those items to the best of our ability into a draft of bylaws so that they are integrated into a common understanding. Either that or we have a separate document, but given the fact that I personally think that's a fine idea, that we integrate those and that those be in the draft of the bylaws. That's my motion.
I second.
Sure.
Can I make a comment? I don't have any problem where it ends up, but I'm wondering if, because it's difficult for us to have a back and forth discussion about the bylaws, if there's a way that we can have it as a separate document that we can look at. Is that allowed?
Yeah,
For us to have a separate shared document that we can edit that. And then once that we have kind of agreed on that, put that into the bylaws so that that's not a greater discussion about things that we don't have agency over changing in that.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'm personally fine with, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm personally fine with that. I understand the challenges of not being able to, reply all. And this is not this aspect of the bylaws, if it were integrated as it would be integrated into the bylaws, are not germane to commission business in the sense that they are going to change somebody's mind about a commission directive or something like that. They're basically our guiding principles. So yes, I would agree with that.
I think it's just really important that we have a concrete plan that we agree on, that we get behind, and that we accomplish.
Agreed.
Yeah, I really appreciate you putting this together, Karen. I feel like something that would be helpful for me is like, and maybe this is too nitty-gritty for now, and maybe this is January, but something where we're like actually assigning point people for each of the like action/progress. I know that we want to start with the bylaws, so maybe that comes afterwards. But having individuals take the lead, so like I know what I'm responsible for.
Well, one thing that I would like to do after tonight is to go through and sort of make a couple of changes to this, things that are already underway. I mean, I find these, spreadsheets to be helpful if they're living documents so that, if something is underway, well, here it is, and this is the report back date. So we all sort of have an idea of where we are and where we're going. But I agree with you. I do agree with you that knowing who's doing what, is extremely is extremely helpful.
Well, I think what happens oftentimes when no one knows who's doing what, nothing happens, right? So we're here to
Yeah.
do something and to strengthen the commission and the commission's relationship to the community, all the communities, and also to the police department. So let's go.
Totally
So,
with you.
Karen, do you want to, I don't think the word's reorganize, or maybe it is. Do you want to reorganize this spreadsheet based on our discussion tonight? And then, bring it back up later, or do people want to begin to volunteer for ownership of certain things now?
Well, it was more, the reason I was saying that is just simply that, I think even though we probably weren't sitting here tonight going, well, that's on the spreadsheet. So now we've done this and now we've updated that and we know where the bylaws are. I don't think we're sitting here working off a spreadsheet, but I think the conversation is such that this evening we have done a number of things that we actually wanted to do. Maybe we even did them subconsciously, but having Anthony here to talk about and clarify what our role is, we all mentioned that at the retreat, that we need direction. We need to know what we can do, what we can't do, what we're supposed to be doing. And, directly, he's actually helped us in answering those questions. It's not like we may not have any further questions, but at least we know who to go to. And we also know that we're going to revisit that in January. So now we all know that. And in fact, to some degree, the spreadsheet might even help with developing agendas because we know what we're doing in January and we may know what we're doing in February before January. So that was sort of my point in updating the spreadsheet, not reorganizing it, because I'm not really sure I feel comfortable doing that. I feel like unless somebody thinks that it's not well organized, and I am happy to reorganize it.
Okay, well, I misspoke, I'm sorry. As I indicated,
That's
I'm
okay.
not sure if that was the right word.
Yeah,
But,
no, that's perfectly understandable. I perfectly understandable.
yeah, so if you're going to update it from an operationalized, and the way I'm thinking about this is in order to operationalize it, as I understand, that's was the thrust of what you wanted to do. And if I'm wrong, please tell me. But if you're going to update it, do you want to update it first and then bring it back in January so we can kind of talk about assigning and operationalizing the pieces of it then, or do you want to do that now?
Well, I don't know. I guess that's a tough one because I just want to my only goal in doing in bringing this forward was to make an easy way for us to, get the work done. Certainly for me as one person of 7, I just was hoping that we would leave tonight's meeting with a couple of steps. It doesn't have to be all at one time, but just a couple of steps being in motion. And I feel like we've done some of that tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. If others feel that, yeah, you know what, that was a good first step. And let's look at where we are and, come prepared in January that we're going to, form sort of group that we will look at a strategic plan. We will form some sort of group. We already are working on on having meetings in other places. So a lot of this is in motion, and I think we should, feel good about that.
Great, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay. Oh, Mary, it is, okay, Commissioner Cox?
I was just gonna thank Commissioner Paul for putting together the retreat, because for me in my mind, it was like an impetus towards doing things. This us coming together, having conversation, making lists, then that made me feel very motivated to go out and do the next thing. And so I wanted to just thank you for some, I guess I call it synergy, that what you get from something like that. So thank you very much for doing the work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Not, I will move on from commission business to commendations. And I see that I didn't see any commendations that we had. The next meeting date is going to be January 27th of 2026. We will be in the new year. And following that, nobody else has anything else. I will move to.
Excuse me, can I just do it? Could I do a verbal?
Hold on. I got two people. Hold on a second. I looked down and then I had two hands raised when I looked back up. So Commissioner Cox, go ahead.
I just wanted to do a verbal commendation. And I'll write something up and send it in to Shannon. But Lieutenant Henry responded to a call, and he did just like a really great job. He got people that were upset and agitated calmed down really just very professionally. He exuded what I've referred to since then as a really great dad vibe. And so I know there's been different discussions and that sort of thing, but I didn't want to go any further. This happened a couple months ago, and I have it way down somehow on my to-do list to write up the commendation. But I did want to mention that we had a very positive experience, and I was thinking after he left that I wish I had had a dad like that was that good, and so I just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cotton. Commissioner Comerford?
I would like to say how much I appreciate Chief Burke. I no longer have to worry about what we're doing is ethical and permissible and kind. It's such a relief. I can't even tell you. I appreciate your professionalism, your sensitivity, your strength, and also your ability to help people to do the right thing at the right time. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Commissioner.
And I'm hoping that the next 5 years you'll continue in that same role.
Thank you, Commissioner Comerford. Commissioner Paul?
Sorry, I'm lowering my hand, but since I had it raised, totally agree.
I'm sure we all do. Thank you very much. And thank you, Chief. I appreciate your work. Certainly we all do. Any other commendations or comments before I move to adjourn? Hearing none, I will move to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Can I say one more thing?
Please do.
I hope that we're really very aware and sensitive and proactive around what's happening with our Jewish communities around the world and in our own community. I feel like we need to be doing more here. I don't know what that looks like, but I think we need to be more visible as a community. This is a very, very dangerous situation, and we have many wonderful, wonderful Jewish neighbors in our communities. So I guess I'm saying that to you, Chief, also, and maybe when you talk to the mayor, just to raise that issue in our community, just that we need to be neighbors to each other. This is a really tender, difficult time for many of our neighbors. That's all. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. I've heard a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
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 Those opposed, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.